And I want to talk to you a little bit about Tish B'Av because it's an important day in Jewish history. So on the handout I've given you, it says Tish B'Av means the 9th day of the month of Av. Av is the 5th month, of the Hebrew religious calendar, Nisan being the 1st month, or the 11th month of the Hebrew calendar, Tishrei being the 1st month. The 9th of Av is an anniversary of a number of events in the life of Israel that we should remember, that we would rather not remember, but it's important that we do so. The reason we would rather not remember the things that happened on this day is because they were all bad. Here's a list. Number 1, the spies brought back their evil report and persuaded the people of Israel not to go up into the land as God commanded them to do. Number 2, on this very day, Nebuchadnezzar and his troops destroyed Solomon's temple, the first temple. On this very day, Titus destroyed the second temple. In 135 CE, on this very day, Bar Kokhba and his troops were slaughtered, ending the second Jewish revolt. And on this very day, the Roman Emperor Hadrian ordered Jerusalem to be plowed under and a new pagan city built on its place called Aelia Capitolina. In modern times, other bad things happen on this day as well. According to some traditions, the First Crusade began in 1095 CE on this day. It was a war of the Christians against the Turks who had captured Jerusalem. Eventually, the European armies captured Jerusalem, killing the entire population, and claimed the entire region, now known as Israel, as a Christian state. In 1290 CE, on Tish B'Av, King Edward I expelled all the Jews from England. Incredibly, on this same day, in 1492 CE, all the Jews were expelled from Spain. In 1555 CE, Pope Paul IV decreed that all Jews should be moved into a ghetto. In 1914, on August 1st, which was Tish B'Av in the Hebrew calendar, the German ambassador to Russia formally declared war and World War I began. Incredibly, on July 22nd, 1942, which also was the beginning of Tish B'Av, the Jews of the Warsaw Ghetto were ordered deported to the death camps, and move that marked the significant beginning of Hitler's final solution. Because of all the bad things that have happened to our people on this day, it was decreed by the sages that it become a day of fasting and prayer. In Orthodox communities, the first 9 days of Av are treated as a period of mourning. On the 9th of Av itself, the fast resembles the fast of Yom Kippur, beginning and ending at sunset, abstaining from all foods and drink, thus a full fast. The tradition of fasting on a number of days in the year as a reminder of the fall of the temple was already existing in Zechariah's day. Thus says Adonai of hosts, the fast of the 4th, the fast of the 5th, the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th months will become joy, gladness, and cheerful feast for the house of Judah. So love truth and peace. Zechariah 8:19. This means that while we look back at the time when the temple was destroyed and are mournful, we may also look forward to the time of the temple's rebuilding and be joyful. Thus, the 9th of Av, while a day of fasting and prayer, is not entirely without joy. We look forward to the coming of Yeshua, the rebuilding of the temple, and his reign in Jerusalem. For the present, however, the Temple Mount is still controlled by those who do not worship the one true God, and a pagan temple stands there. This is an ever-present reminder that because of our disobedience to Hashem, we were exiled from the land, and our enemies possessed the land, which the Almighty has promised to us as an eternal inheritance. It is our duty to do teshuvah, returning or repentance, and to, quote, seek Adonai while he may be found, call upon him while he is near, Isaiah 55:6. So today is 9th of Av, Tish B'Av on the Jewish calendar. Now, the rabbis say that since Shabbat is supposed to be a day of joy, that one does not celebrate it on Shabbat, but you would celebrate it the following day, which will be Sunday. So Orthodox Jews will be celebrating the fast itself tomorrow because they don't want to fast on Shabbat. I'm just giving you this as a way of letting you know Jewish history and understanding of all the different things that happened on this particular day. And I would encourage you, like I said, to go to the internet and just write in the 9th of Av, put 9th of Av, and look at all of the things that come up that happened to the Jewish people on this particular day. Just a chance to review your history. It's a good historical marker of all the things that have happened, significant things that have happened to the Jewish people throughout history. So, I'm not saying that anybody is required to fast in this day. Now, any kind of fasting would be a personal thing, so that's not a corporately required. But clearly, Zechariah is mentioning mentions it first because he's talking about the destruction of the first temple, and that they mourned the destruction of the first temple in the book of Zechariah. So I'm just showing you a little bit of the history here and talking a little bit about the things that happened this day. Is there any comments or questions you'd like to make about Tisha B'Av? This is down the calendar that we should make note of and should, allows you to be aware of Jewish history and what's going on to the Jewish people throughout the years. Any questions or comments? Not everybody at once? Okay, please. One at a time. Is anybody awake? Anybody out there? Hello? Okay. All right. So you have this for your perusal, and you can go through that at your convenience. But I encourage you, like I said, to just do some internet searches on 9th of Av, and you'll see all of the different historical things that come up with regard to that. All right. Let me ask this question. I sent out this meme to a few people yesterday. I got it from my good buddy. It said, grace did not save Noah. Obedience saved Noah. What do you think about that? Let's talk a minute about grace and obedience.
It's not an either or, it's an and.
Okay.
Grace
Could it be
and
both? Yeah.
Noah's obedience.
Okay. In what way?
That would be.
God chose Noah.
Okay. In what way was there grace?
Well, because he not only saved Noah, but all his family, his sons and their wives. So it wasn't just Noah, and it doesn't say that his sons were obedient as Noah was.
Right.
So it doesn't state that, but it could be implied. I don't know.
So hold on. Do we have precedence that a righteous individual could help others who are unrighteous? Think back to the book of Numbers. Do we have evidence that a righteous person could intercede for the unrighteous, and based upon that person's obedience, others be helped as well? Give me an example. Yes.
Sodom and Gomorrah,
Sodom and
Abraham.
Gomorrah, in what way?
Well, in fact, he said, if I can find 10 righteous men,
Yes.
will you preserve the city?
Abraham interceding for Sodom and Gomorrah. What's some other examples?
How about New Testament?
Going high and old, in what way? Yom Kippur? Okay, goes on behalf of all the people? Yes. Oh, you already have one. Hold on, let me come back. You only get one right now. Hold on. Yeah, if we don't get it, we'll come back.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
going back to Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot. Lot was living right in the middle of it.
Right.
Voluntarily, yet he was taken out alive.
Yes. Shown grace there and warned. Okay, go ahead.
How about in the New Testament, when Paul says, parents, you are a covering for your children. We have no idea what the children's status is, but they are still covered by the parents' belief.
Okay. All right. Go back to the book of Numbers for just a moment. Think of a couple. Let's pick an example from Exodus where somebody stood in for the people and they weren't destroyed. Exodus. Golden calf. How about the golden calf?
Yep.
What does Moses do? He says, okay, God, don't destroy all these people. You know? Yes, they've sinned. Yes, they've done wrong, but don't destroy all these people. How about the book of Numbers? Did you see an example of the book of Numbers where a righteous man stood in for the people and kept the people from all being destroyed?
Actually, Moshe several times.
We just went through it. Pentecost, who was awarded with a covenant of peace because he stopped the plague. He saw the two individuals cavorting at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and God said he was righteous. And a righteous man stepped in and kept more people from being killed. So what was gracious about what was gracious about with God with regard to Noah? Where's the grace part? I mean, we know that he saved him, but where does the grace start?
We're all fallen short and all have sinned before God, so saving Noah just all by itself was grace.
Well, where does that, with that grace, I'm agreeing with you, where does that grace start, though, with regards to Noah? Where does it start? And what I'm trying to get at is that it starts with God speaking to him and telling him what he wants. Because if God did not speak to Noah and say to him, hey Noah, I'm about to do some really horrendous stuff, he could have just let it happen and Noah would have had no idea that it was coming. It's grace, how about this? It's grace that God speaks to us, and it's grace that God gives us commandments. Because he said to Noah, hey Noah, this is coming, and because this is coming, here's what I want you to do. I want you to build an ark for you and your family. Had he not told him what to do, what if he had just said, hey Noah, there's a whole bunch of rain coming. Okay, what's rain?
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be water that falls from the sky. Okay, fine. But he didn't say to him, and by the way, here's what I want you to do to remedy that. I want you to build this floating vessel that will rise on the water and keep you and your family safe. What if he doesn't tell him to do that? He just tells him there's a flood coming. But he gives him more specific commands that says, here's what I want you to build. Here's how I want you to build it. That's grace. So that God gives us commandments is grace. Now here's the question. Had Noah been disobedient and not built an ark, would he have been saved?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
God would have found somebody else.
Okay, but that's another, yes, possibly.
But disobedience,
He would have been saved. He was disobedient.
Yeah, if he had not been obedient, if Noah would have said, okay, now I know that God told me to build an ark. I know he commanded me to build an ark, but I'm just choosing not to build one. I'm just not going to build one. I just, don't have the time, don't have the energy, just, it's just not in the plans. I'm just not building an ark. Would he have been saved? And my answer to that is no.
Could, but it's probably not going to happen.
Not unless a miracle intervenes. But in the story, if he doesn't build an ark, in obedience to the command, he is not redeemed. He's not saved. So now Hebrews says, by faith, Noah was saved. But that's because he had faith that also had works with it. Faith that God would do what he said. Faith in the Word of God. Yeah.
Well, going back into like Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot and his family left there, don't look back. That's what
Right.
they did.
Exactly. Yeah, Lot's told, don't have anybody look back to Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the command. Anybody that does, this is what will happen. He doesn't tell them what will happen. Just don't look back. Lot's wife looks back. She's instantly crystallized. And I have seen her in the Sinai desert. I have seen, well, okay. You go out to the Sinai desert, and they actually have an area there in Israel that says Lot's wife. Now, how they know that, I'm not exactly sure. But they say it's Lot's wife. There's all these crystallized salts out there.
There are
Okay.
many pillars of salt in that area.
Yeah, so, yes.
so you're saying faith without works is dead?
Faith without
I think
works
that's a
is dead.
scripture verse somewhere.
Yeah, I know. That's where I think Yaakov is onto something here. Faith, if it doesn't materialize in works that demonstrate you have faith, doesn't work. He says faith without works is dead. In other words, you can have grace. And grace is God giving us a commandment, letting us know what his plans are. Then I have to have faith that what he says is true. And that faith must then eventuate in obedience to. The grace doesn't get me anywhere if I don't be obedient. If I choose to ignore the grace, whose fault is that? That's mine. But here's the point I'm making. It's grace when God tells us what he wants us to do. Because if not, we would stand before him and say, well, he would say, here's what I wanted you to do. We'd say, well, you never told us that. You never knew that. You never told us that. We'd have a point to make. We'd have a point there if he never told us what he wanted. But the fact that he tells us what he wants, what he commands us, then he expects us to be obedient. Faith must eventuate in obedience in order for the grace to be applied. For by grace are you saved through faith. Okay. But the other part of that equation is then our salvation must be worked out with fear and trembling. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. That is, now that you have been saved, redeemed, listen to the commands of God and be obedient to them. Yes.
It's by grace that God chose you to speak to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because none of us are worthy of God's presence.
Absolutely. Right? It's grace that God speaks at all. And when he says to Noah, Noah, this is what I'm about to do, and this is the remedy for what I'm about to do, that's grace. Now, here's the irony. Here, let me ask this question. Here's one on the other side of the coin. One we're not going to like as much.
Uh-oh.
Would God be just and righteous if he never demonstrated grace?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Does he have, ask the question a different way, does God have any obligation to be gracious to us?
What does grace mean?
Right.
Unwarranted.
Unmerited. Right. It wouldn't be grace if he's obligated. The very fact that it's grace means it's unobligated. So God would be just and right if he never said anything and brought judgment. For all have sinned and are under the judgment of God.
So that whole entitlement thing doesn't work.
The whole entitlement thing doesn't work.
Oh, no.
So, in the story, let's go back to our story of Noah for just a moment. Would he have been righteous if he had just destroyed Noah and his family? Absolutely.
Okay.
And in fact, if we go back, if we fast forward a little bit, God says to Moses, hey Moses, you know, I'm thinking about destroying everybody all over again and just starting over with you. Forget this 8 people. Let's just start over with you. Moses says, bad idea. I'm paraphrasing. But bottom line is, God was willing to start all over with Noah. With Moses. So the very fact, look, and here's my point. If God destroys everybody, and he's here on this earth by himself, who is going to be here to tell him he's wrong? Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1.
It seems like over the centuries we've put these halos over all of these people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the people. It's always God that does that work. And I'm going to choose this person just because I want to. You know, It's not because that they're so special, so holy, whatever. He made that happen. It's all him. It always has been.
Right. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Just, going back to the garden, on the covenant, after they sinned, he could have snuffed, wiped them out then.
Right.
I don't see what Adam was busy repenting. He was too busy blaming Eve.
Right. Yeah, grace right there all along, and then from the get-go. Yes.
Just to counter you, because I'm a jerk, by grace, isn't that being a part of his very nature almost obligates him, because that is his nature?
What obligates what?
His nature, because that's part of his character. His character is long-suffering. His character is mercy. His character is loving kindness. So,
absolutely on the character side of things, but here's the question. And this goes back to our text today. Both the Isaiah text and especially the Deuteronomy text. Let's ask this question. If you look at this, okay, so let's go back to Deuteronomy for just a moment. Deuteronomy is set in the context of they're in the last month before of the 40th year. And he's going to reiterate the commandments again. Okay? All the stuff that we've just studied Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. We're going to hear it all again to some extent in different format, but we're going to hear the basic Deuteronomos, second law. We're going to hear it. Okay, that's how the Greeks put it. So we're going to hear it all over again. The first generation, though, look at what happened. Deuteronomy. They sinned by disbelief in His word. He said, "Go up and take the land, for I have given it to you." Now, here's where the process means that we have to be obedient. He says, "I've given it to you, but you got to go take it." Which one is it?
Oh,
Yes. It's not either or. He says, I mean, like I said before, some people would say, "Well, He's just given it to us." He says, "You got to go take it." Well, are we taking it, or are you giving it to us? Yes.
Yes.
And they said, "Thank you for giving it to us. We don't think we can take it." And He said, "You rebelled against me." And did you notice what they did when He says, "Okay, everybody 20 years of age and older will die off in the wilderness." Okay, we just went through that in the book of Numbers. And then they say, "Well, hey, now that we've taken God off, let's go up and try to take it." And He goes, No. Don't you dare think you're going to go up there now. Not going to happen. You try to go up there now, I'm going to destroy you. That way. See, they went. It's like a parent with a child with a parent. You know, you tell the child to do something. "I want you to go and do this." They go, "No, I don't want to go do it." "I want you to do it." "I don't want to do it." Then they say, I want to do it." Say, "You know what? I don't like the attitude." Oh, the time has come. So my point is this, that the grace of God has a statute of limitations.
yes.
In other words, you have windows of opportunity to be obedient.
Pharaoh.
Huh?
Pharaoh.
You have a window of opportunity. In other words, what I'm saying is this: we cannot presume that grace will always be there. It's presumptuous to say, "Well, God will always just be gracious, and so no matter how I rebel, He'll always just be there, and He'll just automatically say, well, it's all forgiven, everything's hunky-dory." No, there's times where we find, and here's one of those places in Deuteronomy where He says, "You know what? You have a window of opportunity. When you sent out the spies and they came back and they said, Joshua and Caleb said we can do it, the other 10 said we can't, that was your moment of decision. You had a window of opportunity there to say, okay, God, we'll be obedient or we won't be obedient." And that window of opportunity is shut. Now you guys collectively say, "Oh, hey, now that we made a mistake and realized that God's angry with us, we're going to go up there and we'll take it now." God went, No. Window of opportunity is closed. And all I'm saying is this: it's presumptuous of us to think that God has to be gracious continuously in any given situation. Yes, His overarching character of who He is gracious. Does that obligate Him in specific instances to be gracious in every place? No. But His character, you're right about His general character, but does that mean He's obligated in every situation to keep the statute of limitations open forever? No.
So you mean there will be a time of judgment?
There is a time of judgment. And I'm saying we don't know when those windows of opportunity are.
Brent.
Yes.
Proverbs says that those that flee from the law, God won't even hear their prayer.
Yes.
Now, so, if that's the case, when does He hear your prayer? When you say, "God, forgive me," or when you return to the law and then say, "God, forgive me"?
I've been saying this for a while. Great question. I have an issue. This is why I get invited to prayer groups. Okay? You get an invitation all the time to come to prayer groups. Evangelicals around, they're having prayer groups. And let me state at the outset, I'm not against prayer. Please. I believe in prayer. However, in these invitations to come and pray, they'll say stuff like this. I'll get these emails. They'll say, we're having a prayer group that's getting together to pray about whatever. the nation of, the nation of Israel, or, America, or whatever. And there's a lot of different topics that we can pray about. All of them potentially legitimate. Here's my issue, and I'm agreeing with you, and that is this. It seems to me that before we go, it's presumptuous to go to God and say, hey God, give us what we want, maybe even what you want. When we are not willing to surrender and bend the knee to Him and say, okay God, we have not been faithful to be obedient to you, why should you do for us what we are asking when the things you've already asked we're not doing? That seems to me a little bit presumptuous to say, hey God, I want you to help us. I want your help in this situation or that situation, and then all the while ignoring the things He said over here and saying, well, I can just ignore these. And He has said, no, do this and do this. And I get this sensation as I read these, as I hear these petitions for prayer, that He's saying something like this, paraphrasing, why should I give you what you're asking for when the things I've already asked you to do, you're not doing? You want me to do more, or you want me to do other things, and the things I've already asked you to do, you don't want to do. Now, we can make the argument that there are those who are ignorant of what God has asked them to do. And there are those who don't know what the commandments are, and they don't read these. I was just having, here's a discussion I'm having with a young man today. So this is, I want you to listen to hear this. This is our ongoing discussion. I talked about Mark Nanos and inviting him to come to Nanos. I didn't invite him before. He says, I said, I like the fact that he has no evangelical axe to grind. He's just saying what he sees in the text. He wrote me and said, well, he's a Reformed Jew. He says, I'm looking at his resume. He's not a New Testament scholar, though, which is why I haven't seen anything on him. I write, he's a new breed of Jewish scholars who are taking the New Testament as Jewish literature, something that has not happened over 2 millennia. He writes back, you don't think that's too reductionistic, viewing one periphery or lens? I wrote back, no, most Jewish scholars have avoided the New Testament. Name me some Jewish scholars of the past, going back to the 1st century, that can comment on the New Testament. He says, no, you misunderstood what I'm saying. Should we only look at the New Testament through a Jewish lens? I wrote, well, since it was written to Jews, by Jews, and for Jews, primarily, that seems like a good place to start. Of course, with just one lens. That's not what historians do, though. Otherwise, it produces a meta-narrative that doesn't capture the entirety of the text or the events. Fair enough, I write. But many years of evangelicals have failed to consider the Jewish lens. We are now living in times where academic Jews, non-Christ believers, are considering the New Testament and doing so in a way that has provided many insights. Well, sure, he writes back, well, sure, studying the Jewish perspective helps enhance our view of text. Nevertheless, a good historian will look through different lenses and utilize all elements or themes within the text to see it as it is. I write, very true. When I say Jewish lens, I mean the Hebrew Scripture primarily.